Hello again. So, this is chapter 10 of Hold On to Your Kids by Gordon Neufeld. This chapter is called A Legacy of Aggression. So, Gordon Neufeld says, as peer orientation increases, so will childhood aggression. He says in 1993, 6,000 violent incidents were reported by the New York School Board in comparison to one incident in 1961. And in the last 50 years, assault among Canadian youth have increased fivefold. So it's not just in New York, but happening in Canada as well. Aggression can be turned towards others or towards ourselves, like outward or inward. So suicide rates have also increased, and the fastest rate of increase has been for 10 to 14-year-olds, which I found that really shocking to read that even happens so young. There can be different reasons for aggression. Toddlers, for instance, are often aggressive, even though they're rarely peer oriented. They're just still learning, right? It's also possible to become intensely frustrated and not to be driven to attack somebody. The healthy response to frustration is to try to make a change. That's usually the first thing people do when something doesn't work. You want to change the situation. And then, if that's not possible, another option other than to attack somebody is to accept how things are and then to adapt. But if adaptation doesn't happen, the impulse to attack can still be kept in check by tempering thoughts and feelings. So if you're feeling like attacking somebody, but you have some other feelings mixed in there too, then you might not do it. So as a mature person, like that's mature regulation, right? As a mature person, if you're in a situation where somebody's driving you absolutely nuts and you'd like to slap them, there are lots of things that are usually stopping you. So, and one of them is that you're thinking about consequences, or, other thoughts come into the mix that prevent you from becoming violent. Um, so he says there are three major deficiencies in peer relationships that lead to frustration being bottled up until it erupts in aggression. So, first of all, peer oriented children are less able to affect change. When we feel frustrated, the first thing we want to do is to change whatever isn't working for us by trying to get someone else to change, or by trying to change our own behavior, or by a variety of other means. So, having moved us to action, frustration has done its duty. So, there's a reason we get frustrated, right? Like something isn't working. So, then we try to get that to work somehow. Um, the problem is that like life brings many frustrations that are beyond us. For example, we can't alter time, we can't bring back the past, and we can't make someone cooperate with us who won't. That's very frustrating sometimes as a parent. Of all the unavoidable frustrations, the most threatening for children is that they cannot make themselves psychologically and emotionally secure. They're totally dependent on us for that. These extremely important needs, to be wanted, to be invited, to be liked and loved, and to be special, they're out of their control. They're out of our control as adults too, right? But hopefully we're mature and feel secure in ourselves as adults. So we can't forever protect children from reality, but children should not have to face challenges that they're not ready for. So at least not unprotected. Peer oriented children are desperate to secure their attachment and with each other, so they become demanding in their relationships with each other, or trying to make themselves more attractive in the eyes of their peers, and that's why they're becoming more and more preoccupied at a younger and younger age with fashion and even with plastic surgery, which I didn't know. But one of my kids told me that at the high school there are several girls especially talking about that, which I found surprising. So some become bossy, some become entertainers, some bend over backwards. They try anything to be accepted by their peers. This can happen in relationships with adults as well, but it's much more likely to happen in peer relationships. No matter how much a peer oriented child tries to attempt to change things, they get no lasting relief from the attachment frustration. So frustration turns one step closer to aggression. And then the second point is peer oriented children are less able to adapt. Frustration that comes up against obstacles that can't be changed is supposed to move or feel like to feelings of futility. So you're supposed to, if something can't be changed, feel at some point that, okay, time to accept it. And usually we do that when we're little, especially in the form of tears. I do that still as an adult too, and maybe you do too. A child who adapts does not attack. So, if they're crying and feeling their sadness about something, then they don't feel like punching anybody about it anymore. A child won't come to rest until they feel the futility of the situation. So, you can probably think of examples with your own child for that they don't stop until they really feel like, okay, I'm up against futility here. And then they usually break down and feel sad. And you maybe feel bad, but that's okay. It's okay for them to feel sad. They need to feel their sadness. It's not just enough to understand that something is futile just with your mind. You've got to feel it. For example, when you lose somebody you loved, whether that's through separation or death, it's not enough to just know in your mind that they're gone. You've got to really feel it. You have to come to terms with it emotionally through waves and waves of felt futility. It takes a long time sometimes, and only when the futility sinks in, tears come and adaptation begins. So this process can take years with something really major like a death. For small frustrations, adaptations can occur more quickly. If a child wants ice cream before dinner and they can't have it, they might have a little cry about it and move on. But if they get a new sibling, that's a bigger deal. So some kids have a hard time with that, and it can take a longer time to adjust. If feelings of futility don't come, then adaptation will never occur, and then maturation won't occur either if they don't know how to adapt. If you have learned to suppress your tears, what's important is to feel your feelings of futility. So if you don't cry anymore, but at least it's important to feel those feelings: sadness, disappointment, and grief. The dilemma for peer-oriented children is that feelings of futility involve vulnerability, and in a culture of cool, tears of futility are a source of shame. Because feelings of futility are suppressed, peer-oriented children are more prone to aggression. Peer orientation gives both rise to frustration and takes away the tears that would be the antidote. So they need to have a parent there or somebody that they can really rely on to feel safe, to feel their sadness. And then the third point is that peer-oriented kids have fewer mixed feelings about attacking. So when it comes to aggression, having mixed feelings is important. Peer-oriented children are much less likely to feel ambivalent about attacking. Normally, keeping attacking impulses under control or intentions not to hurt, or a desire to be good, a fear of retaliation, or a concern about consequences. The conflicting motivation keeps us civilized and enables self-control. But we talked earlier about that kids who are peer attached and are therefore less mature often don't have those mixed feelings. So without mixed feelings, nothing is stopping the impulses from being acted out. The reason peer-oriented children don't have mixed feelings is their lack of maturity, which can only arise when a child feels secure in their attachment, like we discussed. It doesn't matter what an impulsive child knows, how good his intentions may be, how often he's been lectured, or how punishing the consequences may be. Once his frustration reaches a certain level, all of this will be eclipsed by an urge to attack. It's not just the urge to attack, it's like anything that, you think you've told your child a million times and they know full well they shouldn't do it when they're little or when they're older and still very immature. They don't have good impulse control, next to none, because they just live in the moment and feel only one thing at a time. So it's a lot harder to control yourself if you don't have mixed feelings. The second reason peer-oriented children are less likely to feel ambivalent is the absence of the mitigating force of attachment. We talked about the bipolar nature of attachment in chapter 2, driving us to repel those we're not attached to. When to satisfy a child's attachment hunger they turn to peers, everyone else is left open to attack: siblings, parents, and teachers, even those peers that the child is not attached to. So it's not like they're attached to all peers, they're attached to their group of peers. This can take the form of physical attack, emotional hostility, or ignoring. Another powerful tempering influence is psychological alarm. Anxiety is an emotional alarm that warns us of danger, from attack, or from the threat of being separated from those who matter to us. Apprehension about getting into trouble, fear of getting hurt, concern about consequences, or anxiety about alienating loved ones are mechanisms meant to move a child to caution. Attacking is risky business that should evoke feelings of alarm. Feeling alarmed makes us feel vulnerable. Because of their flight from vulnerability, peer-oriented children lose their feelings of fear. They no longer talk about being frightened or nervous or scared. Once feelings of alarm are numbed, the chemistry of alarm, the rush of adrenaline, can become appealing or even addictive. That's probably why there is a surge in popularity for extreme sports. The more intensely peer-oriented a child, the less likely he is to feel apprehensive and caution. Brain research reveals that up to 1/3 of adolescent delinquents no longer have normal brain activity in the area where alarm is supposed to register. Without a functioning trigger in the brain for alarm, a person's impulses to attack are likely to erupt in violent forms. Sport, of course, is a much better outlet than drugs or attacking people or whatever, and it can help people regulate themselves. But I think it can be an issue when people have no fear anymore and do more and more and more and more extreme stuff. Of course, that can become dangerous for them. And sometimes I wonder, as a society, why we idolize that a lot. Like we have a lot of stuff on TV and in books and in media and stuff about like really extreme stuff. And I don't know why we encourage it to that excess, because I mean, yeah, it's great that there are different people with different abilities and all of that. But to take really high risk is, you know, it it should be alarming, like I wouldn't want it for my child. I want them to be safe. So the impact of alcohol illustrates this relationship. Alcohol numbs the sense of alarm. When a person drinks alcohol, the part of the brain that normally inhibits aggression is suppressed. So it's not a surprise that alcohol is involved in a high percentage of violent crimes. People think alcohol makes them brave, but in reality, it just numbs the alarm system. The brain is capable of numbing our feelings of alarm even without alcohol or drugs. It will do so if our circumstances are too overwhelming. So sometimes it needs to do that to protect us. Peer-oriented children are already self-numbing. Once they are teenagers, they're also more likely to drink, increasing the probability of aggression. Our automatic tendency is to focus on the aggression rather than on the underlying issue of children's misdirected attachments. Our only hope of turning things around is to reclaim our children and to restore their attachment to us. So it's really important. I know independence is always like a big, big word. And of course, you want that as a parent. You want them to become independent. But that will happen naturally when the time is right. When they're little, they are dependent on you. And we need to have a healthy, strong attachment with them. Doesn't mean you do everything for them and you fulfill their every wish and you know, but it means that you're there for them when they need you, that you comfort them and they need comfort, and that they know you love them even when you have limits in place. You know, just to have that underlying feeling of security in the relationship. That's what's really important. Alrighty. Thanks for listening again. I hope it was informative. And if you have any questions, let me know.